with Steve Bennish of the Dayton Daily News, and I started seeing some photographs of yours. Had no idea who you were. It was last summer, I believe, and I was like, wow, these are some powerful images that you don't see in the media. You just don't, I don't see this kind of stuff being shot. You see a lot of kind of disaster in economically areas that are experiencing a lot of hardship. You see a lot of like what's called disaster porn, but you never see kind of a street's eye view of the people. And I think some of this economic disaster, you've really kind of brought like a human side to it. And I was like, wow, it's touching. It's, they're heartfelt. Bringing kind of real human being stories to the fore. And what gave you the idea to do scrappers, follow around guys who are scrapping metal for a living all day?
Well, the book is a photo essay of that is meant to connect people to the realities of what's been called the new normal, the new economy, lowered expectations, all of the commonly discussed chronic problems of our economy, and problems is a nice way to put it. So it's a bit of a long story, but the short of it is that as a reporter at the Dayton Daily News, I've written a series of stories over the past 2-3 years. We've called that series "Fighting the Trade War" and "Ohio Under Siege." And what these stories are about are mainly our loss of industry, are the offshoring of American industry, the trade deficits that have resulted from that loss of industry, and also the impact of the financialization of the economy and the collapse of the mortgage bubble, and how that's deeply affected urban places like Dayton. And what we don't see enough of is the direct impact on human beings, on people, on the people, the average person who lives in an area like Dayton, and the downward mobility, the impact on the middle class, and what formerly middle class people are now having to do to survive. See, that's gotten very little coverage. I mean, as you know, the media tends to be sort of herd mentality, and we get sort of micro coverage of some things, but not others. And national news media seems sort of focused on Wall Street and the too big to fail banks and so on, but the real fallout that occurs in a place like Dayton doesn't quite get the attention really that it merits. So that's what Scrappers is about. Really, I think there's just a very fundamental fact about how our economy has changed, and that is that scrap metal and other types of waste was in one year and was in one year our top export to China. I think it was 2011, and in other years it's been among our top exports. So we're living in a world now where what we export are the remains of industrial society and the remains of our middle class lives from that we have to salvage or scavenge following these cataclysmic economic disasters that have occurred. So it's a way to connect people to our economic situation in a way that they can understand and identify with, I think.
When did it first come to you like, I need this book needs to be, it's going to be called Scrappers? Was there an event or a certain person that inspired it, who you were photographing, or I mean, how did this all come about? Because these just aren't like the kind of photographs you would see like photographers or subjects, you'd see photographers generally crowding around. What gave you the I need beyond you could talk about the macroeconomics of it, but what made you really decide to take it to a personal level?
Well, as a reporter in Dayton for many years, I mean, I've seen firsthand. You can't help but be you can't be a reporter in Dayton and not see people pushing strollers and shopping carts loaded with metal from all directions, all over the city, trying to survive through the collection of metal and delivering to scrapyard. I mean, this is a reality that you cannot avoid. It's everywhere you look, over every bridge, over every river in the city, down alleyways, down streets, everywhere. It is an industry. It is. You could drive through you could drive along some streets, particularly those close to the scrapyards, and see that in some ways those areas are the most thriving parts of town, because what's happened is that we have 7,000 empty homes in Dayton. You can't protect them from those who would scrap illegally. We have millions of square feet of empty factories, and a lot of this material is coming from these places. So there's that. But also there was something that happened to me in some years ago in my neighborhood when I was out taking a walk one evening, and I see a car drive up to a trash can in a park, and sort of middle-aged guy pops out of the car, starts rooting through the trash, and I'd never seen that before. I was, here's a man who's driving his car around to hit trash cans in parks. So I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, are you having any luck tonight?" And he told me his story, that he was a printer who'd been laid off, and he had to do what he had to do to survive. And it just clicked, that he's among many others that are doing the same thing. And I'd also observed as a resident here that in advance of the garbage collection every week, you would see people driving through, combing neighborhoods in pickup trucks and just grabbing every metal object on a curb that they could grab and loading it up. And I had not seen this before. It started around mid-2000s, 2006, 2007, in the build-up to the mortgage meltdown, Wall Street collapse, So obviously this was something that needed to be dealt with and put in context. And the underlying reasons why you see this type of activity, which are all related to our loss of industry and loss of middle class.
What do you think people in less affected areas of the country really understand the scope of the problem here?
No, absolutely not. That's one of the effects of now I'm gonna move into a sort of a higher level discussion, if you will, not necessarily higher, but somewhat different perspective. But no, one of the impacts, I think, of globalization, which makes it so insidious, is that different regions of the country have been affected in different ways. The East Coast and West Coast, to a large degree, have benefited from how globalization has evolved, in that they are money centers and very much dependent on financial industry. And with globalization, we know that the financial services sector has done quite well. And of course, they've created these bubbles and too big to fail institutions, but aside from that, they've done well. Also, with greater globalization, you have ports, shipping ports, such as Portland, San Francisco, New York, other coastal port areas have done well because of increased shipping. So, but the other impact is with the dropping of tariffs, barriers, and other types of developments that have have harmed American industry. The middle part of the country has been devastated. There's city after city. We could go on for quite some time discussing it. So people are very provincial no matter where they live, and I think residents of New York, Washington, D.C., other major coastal cities, many, if not the vast majority of them, have no grasp of how deep and how pervasive the economic harm has been from 10, 20, 30 years plus of so-called free trade and trade agreements, free trade agreements, and what they've done to the heartland and to the strategic industries of the United States. And it's only now, in the last year or two, has there been real discussion at household name think tanks, Brookings Institution, academic institutions like MIT, even at the White House level. Only in the last 2 years has there been serious discussion of the need to reindustrialize, rebalance the economy from a domination by financial services sector, and the need to rebuild manufacturing and therefore the middle class. So I don't think people grasp it at all. You have to live out here, and you have to know people here. In Montgomery County, we have had the sharpest slide in inflation-adjusted payroll of all 6 metro counties. I mean, we're down $3 billion annually in 10 years. So that's like nearly 30% every year. It's not cumulative $3 billion. That's every year, annual drop in payroll from a 10-year period of loss of industry. And as you know, we understand that every manufacturing job supports 4 or 5 other jobs. So with those losses, we've lost that amount. The state as a whole, $22 billion inflation-adjusted loss in 10 years. The industrial electric demand of the state of Ohio has declined 30% in 10 years. The number of businesses is down by I think 25,000 statewide, as I recall. So the losses have been devastating, and so I'm trying to think. At the height of the Great Recession, the state was down 600,000 jobs. So it's just been a body blow like we haven't seen since the Depression. And there are parts of the state that really have a Depression era feel about them.
How did you get the scrappers to, what's your method as far as to getting good photographs of real people? How did you approach them, without them feeling, maybe some guy's here to exploit me with his camera, and I'm going to be digging all day tomorrow? How did you approach that whole thing? Because they really seemed like very genuine people in the photographs.
Oh. Well, they were. They now not everyone was amenable to having their photograph taken, and those people, I respect their wishes and didn't, but most of them, I think, were interested in having their story told, and took it quite well. And I just explained to them that I was doing a set of photographs about the scrapper economy and who they were and why they were doing what they were doing, and they were quite agreeable. It was very seldom that I got a negative reaction from anyone. Some just didn't want it. I got the notion that they were a little embarrassed by the fact that they were doing that as a way to make money, but there weren't even that many of those. So it didn't take a whole lot of selling on my part to get people to be willing to be photographed. They seemed to understand that it was a worthy topic for a photographer or a book writer to be doing. Well, I used I'd like to tell you that I used the Holga 120N camera. This is a very, very basic but camera, but it takes some really strong photographs. It's been considered an art camera for many years, and it set me back about $30, but. This camera is a product of the People's Republic of China. It was made in Hong Kong, and I used it quite deliberately to show the scrapper economy through the lens of a Chinese-made camera. That was part of the point of the book. So I enjoyed using it, I must say. So
this is the book, Scrappers. Where can people find this?
The title of the book is Scrappers, Dayton, Ohio, and America Turned to Scrap, a documentary and photographs by Steve Bennish, which is me. It's available as a soft cover at blurb.com, blurb.com. It's also available for all electronic reading devices. That would be the Nook and the Android and all the Apple devices. You can find it at iTunes. It's also available for the Kindle at Amazon.com. So you could find it for every electronic device that you'd like to read on. It looks great on the iPod and the iPod Touch. So the iPad and the iPod Touch. It's also available locally in the Dayton area at Dark Star Books and Comics in Yellow Springs.